Welcome to the Do You Feel Heard podcast, a production of Helping the Herd. Helping the Herd is committed to empowering individuals to liberate themselves from the patterns that keep them from creating their ideal life. If you like this podcast, visit helpingtheherd.com to find resources and personalized coaching to empower you to be your best self.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Do You Feel Heard podcast. We have Alex here today joining us from, you in Chicago right now?
In Northwest Indiana.
Close to Chicago, right?
Very close, yes.
Yeah, always popping around doing cool stuff in Chicago. Wonderful. So happy to have you on here on our podcast today. Alex, I just wanted to start by mentioning how I met you and then see if you tell us a little bit about what you're doing these days, what really lights you up, what you're interested in, so the guests can get to know you. But first, I can introduce you to Ian. Alex and I met at the Ram Dass Legacy Retreat in Maui about 3 years ago now. An incredible meditation retreat. We met a wonderful group of people there, and we still follow up in Sangha, connecting over meditation, spirituality, and that experience there. And it's been a real light in my life. Alex has been a real light in my life. Just a wonderful human who always inspires. So thank you for being on the podcast today, Alex. And yeah, tell us a little more about what you're doing these days.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. That retreat was where we met at Ram Dass in 2021. Really changed my life a lot because I was so devoted to Ram Dass for so many years before that, for a few years, and listening to his talks nonstop. But after that retreat is when I really started feeling Neem Karoli Baba Maharaji in these incredible ways. And before I knew all the stories about him enough to tell people and everything like that, but it wasn't until after that retreat when I started having dreams about him and when I was brought to India and when I really understood finally, like, oh, this is why Krishnadas and Ram Dass considered Maharaji their guru. This is why they devoted their life to him. And I started, every time I'd read stories about him, I would start crying and I would feel this very, very personal and intimate connection. And it finally kind of opened up to me where I was like, wow, this is what he means by this concept of the guru being within yourself. And so I was so grateful for that retreat because a lot of my life now kind of stemmed from there because that was what got me to go to India for the first time a few months later through the grace of people at that retreat. And that's one of the things I'm most passionate about now is taking people on these spiritual retreats to India, which was something that I never would have imagined before, in which I've been back there 4 times now. So that's definitely been something that I hold a lot of interest in, that I'm very passionate about. Yes.
That's wonderful. No, thank you. And yeah, I've been lucky enough to hear a lot about these journeys to India, and you don't just go, you lead others, you help guide others, you help connect them to guides. And I think that's really wonderful because that's an intimidating thing to do, to go to another country that's so different culturally and to dive into the spiritual aspect. It takes someone to help shepherd the way a little bit. So I think that's wonderful you offer that service.
Yeah, it's all by Maharaji's grace, and I could go alone, but I feel like I have that calling to bring people out there, and it's when we are going, it is really entering into a spiritual container or pressure cooker, almost like if you were going on a psychedelic retreat or a Zen retreat. It's another format of that, but in the format of a spiritual pilgrimage or journey in that site.
Right.
But it's very internal, and people go through a lot of stuff because as there's so much energy coming in and so much things come up, as you know, of our neurosis or our character defects or things to face and work through. Because if there's one thing I've learned for sure, it's that inner growth on the spiritual path is not for the faint of heart and takes a lot of strength and courage, because it's not, when you see somebody emanating love or presence or consciousness, it's because they've been willing to do that hard work. Like someone like Ram Dass, for example, because there's so much we have to purify. There's so much we have to work through to get to that place to get to that place inside ourselves.
That's right. Pressure cooker is a great term for it. I think anytime you put yourself into new experiences or environments, get to outside of your comfort zone, that's where growth happens. That's the only place where growth can happen often. And so, yeah, much props to you for that. And tell us a little bit about what other things you do, especially more locally. I know about the Kundalini yoga. I received some of your great teachings, and I love that. And I keep saying it, and we are going to get scheduled for a Zoom session ASAP. I need it. I want it. My spine wants it. But tell us about that and some of your work with recovery and anything else you're passionate about these days.
Yeah, I love teaching Kundalini yoga. It came to me around that same time. And it's just a method and a lot of people in it. For me, myself being someone that's 9 years in recovery from drugs and alcohol, and I also work in addiction recovery with clients, and I have for many years, and have also went through a lot of 12-step recovery myself, and was very, very involved at one time, but still am to an extent. Um, Kundalini yoga, though, I found there's also a lot of people that practice Kundalini yoga that have recovered from various addictions. And I think it provides a really great format for that because it really gives you everything you need. And I love how the practice combines mantra and meditation and breath work and asana and relaxation. And I think it gives a really good energetic format. And anybody I know, the teachers I've had, the people I know that have practiced for a long time, most of them to me are very, very conscious people, very compassionate people, have very beautiful auras and energy that come off of them. So I'm very grateful for the practice, and I think it is unique. I think it's powerful. I think the way it combines, and I think it can have a lot of benefits. So I love teaching in that format. And that's a big thing that I do these days. And then I'm also very active with just sharing podcasts and videos about the spiritual path, about love. I'm very connected with not only Eastern Maharaji and Buddhism and Hindu and yoga, but also with the love of Christ. I'm very into the love of Christ and Mother Mary and that path of love, of bhakti, of love and compassion and surrender. And I think it's one of the nicest paths for us to wake up to in this world. Yeah.
Mm. That focus on multimodality and that openness that you're describing here, pulling from all these different traditions and letting them live in harmony in you, and having practices that incorporate asana, mantra, breath work, meditation, and can pull in from these different spiritual iconography and traditions is powerful. I've just seen it in your life. I've seen it with what you've shared. And I think it's so easy to get segmented and confused and, start drawing lines. And it's always been an inspiration the way you're able to kind of merge these. And well, speaking of love, Ian and I do communication and intimacy work with helping the herd, helping coach, and help people explore that. One place I really wanted to start with this is I want to see if you could speak to the relationship between love in the spiritual sense and love in the romantic sense, and how those two intertwine and intersect.
Yeah, it's a hard thing yeah, because it's like they're both the same and different at the same time. And I think that I've been in a couple relationships with spiritually minded people, and actually one that I had talked to you about recently that actually, since I've last talked to you, it ended actually. And
Okay.
yeah, yeah, and with people that are single-mindedly, a couple of people that are single-mindedly focused on their relationship with the higher power, on their spiritual path, as I am. And it's interesting because I think to enter into a relationship like that, we have to be very conscious and communicative. And what I've noticed is sometimes, I guess in any relationship, but in the beginning, there is so much beautiful energy and so much love and all of these things. But for those of us that are doing a lot of inner work, we're sort of inviting the universe to purify us, to bring things up inside of us. And that can be really difficult sometimes. And I think we also, if we don't have enough awareness of what's happening, sometimes we can project it onto somebody else, or we can kind of go back into these habitual patterns or say, I'm blaming you, but really it's stuff that's coming up inside of me. So I think it's a very delicate thing to navigate. And for myself, it's the balance of kind of it's the balance of seeing that ultimately everything that's happening is happening inside of my own mind, right? Like my attachments, my aversions, how I'm relating with somebody else. I love a talk Ram Dass used to say, that person, they did what they did. That's their karma or their problem. You react how you react, and that's your work. That's your problem. And he said to interpret what they did, how you're feeling is their problem, is kind of to miss the mark. But it's hard not to do that. But that's why I try to remind myself. So I'm actually going through the end of a relationship right now. So it's amazing you guys bring it up. That was something I was very passionate about, very dedicated to, and I it's been really difficult because I felt that the person I was with, that she was very doing very intense um doing very intense spiritual practice, and very a little bit stressed and overworked, and that some things came up from inside of that person that got put onto me, and I was very hurt by that because it was very unexpected. And there was a drastic change very quickly. And one big lesson I learned too is that we're not responsible for the ideas or stories someone has about us in their mind, which is tough because as somebody who has people pleasing tendencies and is very kind and forgiving, it's easy for me sometimes to get someone's anger or projection taken out on me. And it takes me a while to navigate it and to realize, okay, what's true here, what's not true, what is my responsibility, and what should I not be taking on, because I know who I am and I know what my intentions are, and these type of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. With, I don't even know where to start there. It sounds like you're a coach for helping the herd. I mean, you're touching on so many of the critical aspects of the work that we do here.
Wow.
Maybe just to start, the four agreements is a big foundation of what we do here, and where we start with a lot of people, again, starting internally, like you're saying, and don't take anything personally is such a key part of that. And that's what I'm hearing a lot. You can only take responsibility for yourself, your actions, your reactions. And I hear that a lot. And it makes sense that when you're with someone, someone who's very spiritually motivated, dedicated, when you're with someone like that, it's going to cause, maybe conflict is an interesting word. Again, one of the things we say often is conflict is a good thing. In taught me that one, and it's a helpful reminder and a helpful paradigm, I think. And whenever you're on a spiritual path, to me, that means a path to truth. And you can't control truth. It's not a different thing for individuals. There's this truth around us that we might swim through differently, interact with, interpret differently, but you can't control it. And if you're really trying to awaken to whatever is true, it's going to take you places that might lead to what you might call conflict and separation. I want to hold space for the pain of the separation, but also knowing I bet you're seeing an ending as a new beginning, and seeing it as part of the path unfold. I know that about you enough to know, I'm sure you're oriented in that way, and it's a beautiful thing to have space for the pain and the conflict and the energy that can come around that journey to truth.
Yeah, I'm really so grateful you guys have me on at this time because no coincidence, isn't it? It fits in with what is happening. And yeah, it's Ram Dass talked about different levels of looking at things. And so that's an interesting paradox or whatever you want to call it, because yes, there's the one level from which I can see, okay, if this happened and this split happened, energetically and vibrationally, whatever's happening in the universe has us diverging, at least for this moment in time, right? And I understand the perfection in that. And I've also already seen just all these new things open up where it's like, oh, wow, maybe Maharaji, maybe God wanted me doing all these things that wouldn't have happened otherwise, even though I wouldn't have consciously chose to give up the relationship for those things. And so that's interesting. And then at the same time, feeling the emotions of some of the anger and the blame. And I seen a beautiful quote the other day by C.S. Lewis saying that anger is actually grief a lot of the time, and it's hidden in the anger. And so that helped me because I realized some of the anger I'm feeling when I feel, oh, how could you have done this, or why this and that? Then I realized a lot of it's grief too, and it's processing my own grief and sadness. So there's like these different things coming through of certain times having a lot of equanimity about it, and then certain times being challenged and in line with the path of Maharaji and of Christ, extending as much love as I can, because I do the Lord's Prayer all the time, which is forgive us our trespasses as we've forgiven those who trespass against us. And Neem Karoli Baba, Jesus said, bless those who curse you and pray for those who persecute and despise you. And Neem Karoli Baba would say, be like Gandhi in Christ, and even if someone hurts you, give them love. And so that's really hard, but it's not meaning to not stick up for yourself. And maybe you don't enter into that relationship again, or maybe you have this boundary, but inside, I have to keep praying and extending love, because Maharaji also says, if you can't love one another, you'll never reach your goal. And so that's an interesting thing that has helped me too, is seeing there's the psychological differences going on between people sometimes, but there's also the love of the soul underneath. And so, for example, in my relationship that just ended, I am knowing that this person is a very loving and is very incredible and has had a huge impact on my life. And I know that, in my opinion, maybe she sees it differently. In my opinion, some really hard internal past stuff came up for her, and it was a little too much. And patterns that she has told me that she has done in the past that we thought maybe wouldn't happen came up with the kind of fear and running away. And that's okay. But I'm knowing that this person's heart is very pure and genuine. And so it's so much to navigate, but it goes back and forth for me, definitely from day to day and moment to moment. But it is the most challenging breakup I've ever had in my life, because most of them were always, by the end of it, it was like, oh, good, I'm glad this is over. We need to be apart. Where this one was different, so it's been really tough. Yeah, it's been really tough.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Ian, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on kind of that same relationship between that spiritual love and path and then the relational one. And I'm sure you've helped a lot of couples navigate that in your tenure.
Yeah, there's a lot to catch up on there. I've been the last 20 minutes, so see how much I can chime in here on. One of the things that resonated for sure, you were talking about our, the thing we have control over is how we respond. How do we perceive what's happening to us? We can choose how we perceive it. The same way you're looking at things like, oh, well, maybe, higher source or whomever you're looking at that is kind of guiding you where you need to go, whether the universe, source, God, whatever, is presenting you with an opportunity to go a different path. You might not have chosen that path because it would mean losing that partner, but maybe it's where you need to go, and that's a perception. You're choosing to perceive it that way. as opposed to, this is terrible, this is the worst thing ever, I'm losing this thing that I really wanted, life sucks, I'm angry, I hate you, why would you do this to me? There's so many different ways that we can perceive these things. And similarly, bringing Ram Dass back into it, one of my favorite things that he said was like, oh, you're feeling angry, you're feeling upset. Feel it as long as you want to. As long as you want to feel it, go ahead. And then when you're done, then you can accept what is, and then we can move forward. But it's your choice to stay in that feeling for as long as you want. And one of the things that we do in our work with our clients is helping people go beneath the feeling. What's deeper than the feeling? The feeling is surface level, and it's very sometimes overwhelming, and it can feel like that's all that's happening is this rush of emotion. But when you go beneath that, you find the unmet need that's ultimately triggering these feelings, and from there you can make steps to meet those needs. And you also referenced in your past relationship old patterns resurfacing, and when things come up, falling into those old patterns. And oftentimes what's missing there is safety and security to do the different thing, do the thing, fight that pattern, see that pattern, witness it, and say, I'm not doing that this time because I feel safe to do something different. Most of these old patterns that resurface come from a lack of safety. Oh, this is how I protect myself, is this pattern. This pattern protected me in the past. I need to use that pattern now to protect me. And creating safety and security to be able to not follow that path. And it's not just like safety and security in the relationship, within yourself too. Right? Ultimately, all of these things start within. You're not going to have a safe and secure relationship if you're not safe and secure with yourself, right? It's going to bleed in, it's going to impact. And so all things starting within, and then you bring it into your most intimate relationships, and then it just trickles out into all of your relationships.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, ultimately that's beautiful. Yeah, it's coming from within ourself. And yeah, I love what you said. I love Ram Dass. He's very compassionate, but not coddling, where he's getting you to see it. But also he has that Buddhist aspect of him, which is very good too, in the mindfulness and wisdom. And that blending that is good for me, like love and compassion, but also having a little bit of impersonality and wisdom and perspective. But yeah, I think that we, like you said, if we don't change inside ourselves, then we're kind of just manifesting the same relationships and patterns over and over again. And even if we run away from one or it ends, it's just, then you're like, oh, it's surfaced again in the next one. Like, it's almost like you're like, wow, that's incredible. But really, we're just, because of the energy and vibration, and we're reflecting, and everyone we're with is just reflecting us in a sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, yeah, we're all mirrors. And like you said, if you don't heal the things in this relationship, ending the relationship with the person's not going to magically fix the pattern. It's going to resurface when that same trigger gets brought up, and you're going to have the same reaction. And it's a cycle. You're going to be in that spiral until you heal, until you break out of that pattern. And ultimately that relies, or the responsibility lies within yourself to do that. And the fact that we're all mirrors, there's this Dr. Stan Tatkin is somebody, I love his work. I don't know if you're familiar with him, Alex. But
No.
There's this beautiful audio series. It's like a lecture series on Audible called Your Brain on Love. And one of the things that he says that I parrot, I repeat all the time is like, the purpose of a relationship is for your partner to show you the things that you can't see without somebody showing them to you. Right? You go into a relationship to see those things. Your partner is going to reflect your triggers, reflect your traumas, reflect your unhealthy patterns, wounds that aren't healed. They're going to bring them up. And that's a good thing. Like Derrick mentioned earlier, conflict is a good thing. I firmly believe conflict is good. It's an opportunity for intimacy. Oh, we don't agree on this thing, or oh, I think this and you think this. Well, let's hear each other, and let's honor each other and respect each other in our differences, and let's find a path where both of us are honored and respected versus, well, I feel this and this is the right way. Your way is wrong, and anything other than the way that I see something is a problem. And then you have that's where most people experience conflict as this, oh, we don't agree, so now it's a problem because only one of us can be right. But that's not how it works. Each of us has our own experience, and each experience is valid and true and real. And again, bringing up more things that you said, Alex, like it's all in here. Like this experience is all our experience that we have in this world is a culmination of our senses telling us what is happening, right? And so we're perceiving the reality to be happening to us because of our sensory experience. But it's, I don't know, newer science is now saying that it's all just a projection and it's all just a figment of our imagination, if you will. It feels so damn real. It doesn't feel like imagination. It feels like this is happening right now for sure, especially when big feelings come up or intense things are happening. It doesn't feel fake. It doesn't feel like a projection. And so it's easy to get stuck in that and overwhelmed in those surface level emotions and feelings.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
It's
Go ahead, Derek.
it's amazing how the science ends up taking us to the same places that spiritual traditions have been at for so long.
Hmm.
You know, in Hinduism, they talk about Maya and the whole world is dream or illusion. And it's just what you're saying. And, you know, the more we understand about consciousness, the brain processing, we come to the same conclusions from these radically different ways. And I think that's what draws me to Buddhism is like an anchor, is the way in which it can be completely secular and so psychological, scientific, and then offers these bridges, these portals to some deeper things that are harder to get to via scientific rationalism, but it doesn't create conflict between those. It allows them to exist in a productive harmony. And one thing you said and that really resonated with me was around the safety and security. I thought that was so interesting because there's a way of thinking about things in Buddhism that I really like. And my teacher, David Nichter, my meditation teacher, he talks about this often. It's ground, path, fruition. Ground, path, fruition. And it's just this model of looking at any situation. What's the ground? Where are we? What's the path? And what's the fruition or goal? And it can be really clarifying to, you know, just kind of segment and group our situation and our goals in this way. And one thing I heard there is that maybe one of the most important paths or fruitional goals to walk toward is safety and security, because that's the ground where you can then move forward towards something that's more ideal, toward where you're really trying to get, whether that's an intimate, loving relationship, whether that's progress for yourself. I'm hearing that ground of security and safety is just vital, and that's something that we try to help clients get to and try to help, you know, instill in ourselves is that. And I don't know how you grow from a place without that. It's just like you're saying, those other patterns will come back to protect you again and again because you know it worked, or at least it felt like it worked, or it did something for you at some point. So I just love that, as safety and security is the ground to try to get to. And it's a never-ending process, right? Ground, path, fruition. Now where you're at is now the ground. Path, fruition. Now you're at the new ground. It goes on and on. But that's something I'm going to take with me. I think it's so clarifying to just remember that's where we have to get before we can get anywhere more productive, more fruitful.
Yeah, I love that safety and security, and it is like Ian said, it's the partner of the person can try to provide that as best they can, but then ultimately it's within our own self that because even if the partner is providing it, if we're not feeling that or seeing it or able to live in it, then even if they are, we might. And then what I've also we might not see that. And I've also noticed how our perceptions paint reality. Like you were saying, we can, because of our perception, we can pretty much make anything into any story that we want to. Like you were saying with how I'm seeing that. And that was one of the hard things I went through with this breakup is this person was my best friend and we were so close and knew each other so well. And all of a sudden I felt that, you know, there's my feeling, but that I was being painted in a way that I didn't feel was who I am or what I was being or intending at all. But then I also have to do the work on myself to realize, you know, what can I learn from this? How can I lose my attachment to, oh, you have to see me this way. And that's what I was saying about I'm not responsible for the story. And Ramdas always said the story someone else sees of me. And Ramdas used to say that when he would give talks. He would say, "You all are seeing me in a different way, or you're attaching something else to me." And he would say, "And that's your problem, actually." He's like, "That's your own thing." And he was funny how he'd say it. But you know, he also helped me because I just heard a talk of his recently where he or maybe it was a while back, but it just stuck in my memory, where he went through some kind of breakup, and he ended up going to therapy for it, and it helped him. And he said it didn't work out in this relationship because it couldn't be how he wanted it to be, and because he was Ram Dass, he thought he should be happy and be over it quick, and it wouldn't be a big deal to him. But he realized that it was causing him, pain, and that there was grief in these things. And so I think it's important to remember, because what I've observed both in myself and in others in spiritual relationships is there is this, sometimes we have to be careful not to fall into, if there's pain or challenge, that, oh, that's a distraction, or what people call sometimes spiritual bypassing or up leveling, and thinking I shouldn't be feeling this or ignore this, because then we're missing really the exquisite opportunity to do the work, which, like you said, a relationship can provide us, because it's showing whatever you want to call it, karma or some scars, or just, you can call it traumas, or whatever you want to call the stuff inside of us that kind of could be sitting dormant until that relationship comes up and gives us the opportunity to work with it.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
something on a podcast that I had listened to, and he was saying how important it is that a relationship has a purpose. Why are you in relationship? If you don't have a why, it can be really easy to lose
Mm,
what you're doing there. Are we together just for the sake of being together? Well, it won't take a whole lot to get us off that track. But if our purpose is to show each other the things that we need to see so that we can grow, we're expecting that to happen in the relationship. We'll hopefully have some structures and some safety measures to make sure that when those things come up, we're ready for them, because we know that's what we're here to do. And so it's not a negative thing at all. In fact, we're
yeah,
fulfilling our purpose because that's why we're in relationship. And so, and it could be anything, right? I mean, fill out your own, purposes as you want. It doesn't have to be that necessarily, but it is. I agree with him that it's important to have a clear purpose, and that you agree to it, you consent to it, you check in on that regularly. Hey, what's our purpose here? Are we fulfilling that purpose? Are we like, how do you define the success of a relationship? If you don't have a thing that you're doing, how can you be successful? Right? So just clarity, being more clear in your communication, over communicating what we're doing together and why we're together.
And intentional. I hear the word intentional in
Mm-hmm.
that, clear, and then intentional. I love that. That's sometimes on this podcast we like to end with a thing to ruminate on, to journal about, and I think that is the one for me, is the, what is the purpose of my relationship? What a good question. You can take that to your intimate personal relationship. You can take it to a work relationship, a friendship. And it doesn't have to be this goal oriented, like Silicon Valley. Like, what's my return on investment? I don't think so. It's just intention. It's just, wait, why am I showing up? And that can be as simple as to love fully. That's wonderful. How clarifying would that be as your purpose? Or you are trying to build something that has a greater purpose to you. And yeah, that seems like it cuts through a lot of the just kind of morass of confusion and conflict that often assails relationships. That's really wonderful. And all right, I had something I really want to ask you, Alex, that's related to this. You mentioned how you can't, I don't know, you can't try to be everything for your partner. You can't try to, as we're activating all this stuff being mirrors, you cannot fix your partner. You cannot necessarily change their stuff. They're going to have their stuff, their stories, their things. But especially with your work in recovery and all that you've worked with, I'm curious how you've seen substance use issues affect relationships, and how do you see, and I definitely want to hear your opinions on this too, I'm sure this comes up a lot, how do substance use issues affect a relationship, and how can a partner support someone with those without falling into codependence? Codependence, something that I've been reading about a lot lately, that is a sticky trap, where the person trying to help ends up kind of becoming less healthy and attaching to all the negative repercussions of the substance use, and almost has the same consequences of those as the person using the substance, because of how they get so attached to helping, and it becomes the focus of their life. So how do you serve your partner or friend in substance use without falling into codependence?
Yeah, great question. Before I get into it, one thing I just didn't want to forget that you mentioned about the purpose and the
Mm,
communication. That's a good lesson for me because the relationship I'm ending, we had entered
mm,
in with this common purpose of one, sharing love with the world, and two, Ram Dass has that talk called the yoga of relationships. And he says it's the
mm,
hardest yoga I know of. He says if you could do any other yoga, you should. He's like,
yeah.
but I think I should have communicated better and kind of saying, hey, we gotta, like you said, keep remembering what we entered into this for. And he used to say in there, if you're only if you're with someone and you just want to have a good time or you like cooking and cleaning together and that's cool, then you can have that. But if you really do want to enter into it to work and transform, but I just really liked what you said about you have to keep revisiting that and maybe even over communicating it so it's not lost and forgotten. I think that's
Mm,
really beautiful and important.
yeah.
Anyways, Derek, yeah, I have been around that for quite some time, almost a decade. And it's really, really hard because there's so many people that are living the same cycles over and over. And the whole point of the Al Anon program in general, if you're familiar with, which is a 12-step program for family members and friends of addicts and alcoholics, is that when you're living with somebody in their addiction, it's not just them, but it's basically a whole family disease because you're all in these cycles together, right? And the person that's putting up the wife or the husband or the child or whatever it might be, especially when it's a couple relationship, the other person is basically just as sick as the addict because they are also living in this cycle. They're living in this cycle and they're doing their things, which is oftentimes leaving and then saying they're going to get divorced and then coming back
Mm,
a month later when the person says they've been sober for a couple of weeks and all of these type of things. And I think, yeah, it takes a lot of wisdom and insight and courage. And sometimes both people get better, like somebody gets clean and sober and the partner finds help. Sometimes only one of them. Sometimes, like I used to know this one woman in Al-Anon that used to speak at a place I worked in, which she said my husband got sober and then he had all these friends and he was doing great and changing himself. And I was getting so angry and jealous and upset. And then I realized, oh my God, like I'm the only one that's still miserable now. And then
mm,
so you never know which way it could work anyway. But I think that, yeah, it's hard because whether it's a parent and a child too, we have to have self love and boundaries and care, and that takes a lot. And knowing that really the other person, they say in Al Anon, their addiction, you didn't cause it, you can't cure it, and you can't
mm,
fix it, or something like that. It's the three C's. But
mm,
knowing where our responsibility lies. And I have a lot of really good friends that are in addictions and these kind of things. And yeah, you wish you could change their life. You wish you could take it from them. You wish you could get them to see. I have really good friends who are deeply spiritual people that I'm very connected with that for years and years I see them do the same cycle, like get clean and sober, start coming to yoga and Bible study and doing podcasts, and then a couple months later go back into the shooting up heroin and shooting cocaine and sex addiction. And it's really hard to see because you're like, oh wow, can't you just snap out of that? But I guess from the outer perspective, all we can really do is work on ourselves and be a beacon of love and
mm,
light and compassion and someone that they know is going to be there. And that's what I've told to people, like, hey, no matter what you go do, if you come back, like, that I'm still going to be here and I'm going to be
mm.
doing this work on myself and I'm going to be here to love and support you. And you know what I'm doing. Like, you know where you can find me, which is a lot to say because it's showing that um, stability and consistency.
Oh, how beautiful. That it's that security, that ground that we're talking about that's so necessary for growth. You're saying, what I'm hearing you say is that one way you can do that is by focusing on yourself, not trying to fix, correct, and as soon as you take on that idea of fixing, someone else is broken and you're projecting that onto them. And I think that's something that we could all take a look at as we try to help in the world. Is, are we serving? That's the language that Ram Dass liked to use a lot, serving. Or are we fixing? Because you got to watch out for what you're putting onto someone else, because that, like we're saying about this nature of reality, those stories kind of live in the air between us and can be picked up on both sides by the way we act, by the way our body language is, by our language. It's an incredible thing. And so what I'm hearing from you, Alex, is it really reminds me of a lighthouse. You talked about a beacon, and one of my favorite, I don't even know what you call it, just a little bit of wisdom for anyone who's trying to help others, is to be a lighthouse. And you can think about what a lighthouse does. You know, it's on the shore where there might be dangerous, rough seas, and it shines a light out into the ocean and helps these ships know where home is, where ground is, where safety is. And how does it do that? By shining brightly. Does the lighthouse go up and down the coast looking for stranded ships to help? Well, that wouldn't be very helpful. Then it'd always be moving and people wouldn't know how to get home. It would always be in a new place. It would be erratic, and it would stop serving the purpose of being a lighthouse, of being a beacon that they can always return to. So it really, that clicked something for me when I first heard that a few years ago, being in a serving profession, being in healthcare, and with everything I've dealt with family and relationships, and trying so hard to help, to fix, sometimes unfortunately to fix. How relieving to just be the lighthouse, to just stay and keep stoking your own fire and know that alone is a service for the people and can give them that ground of security and safety that they might need to go on to their next path. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ian, and so curious, what do you think about this question, and how do you navigate it without falling into these common traps?
Yeah, thanks, man. So one thing that I do or not what I do, but one thing I focus on, or my approach with substances with my clients, is first just acknowledging the baseline truth, which is that, like, altering your mind, altering your experience with substances can make you less able to be present or in control of what you're doing. And in a certain way, you're kind of giving control to the substance. I'm not enjoying this experience, or whatever my motivation is, I need you to give me something different than what I'm experiencing, which is now giving them, essentially, to some degree, hands on the wheel. And you're less in control of the wheel. And so, for instance, drinking alcohol, right? It has negative effects. It impacts our decision-making, our reactions, those kinds of things. And so once we can acknowledge that is true, I then go into the Socratic method, which is just asking lots of questions, seeking to understand, why are you taking this substance? And is this serving you or harming you? What is my motivation? I'm taking this because whatever. And then let's look at the consequences. Is that really helping you, or is it actually hindering you? Oftentimes I see in my sessions, substance use as a way to escape, avoid, mask, bury, not have to face whatever is being presented to them. And Alex, you mentioned, threatening to end the relationship and then coming back, right? That kind of pattern that is sometimes common when you have relationships with those substances, because your relationship with the substance is similar, right? You're threatening the relationship with the substance. All right, well, I'm going to use you, but now I'm not going to come back. We're over. All right, I'm coming back. All right, I'm back.
Yeah.
We're here again, right?
Yeah.
This inherently creates insecurity. It creates a lack of safety. Just that pattern itself. Will it be there? Will it won't be there? Do I have a relationship or don't I? When will I see them again? Won't I see them again? I don't know. That is inherently insecure. And that can often exacerbate the root issue that often motivates people to seek the substance, which is a lack of safety, a lack of security. I'm having these feelings, but I'm okay with having these feelings. I'm okay with seeing these things within myself because I feel secure. And so that's one big piece. And then looking at the substance as the thing that will be there for them is often rooted in core intimate relationships not always being there for them, not having somebody when I'm going through a crisis, when I'm going through something big, where's this intimate parental role, right? Maternal, paternal, whatever, or whoever is their intimate safe place. If they don't have that, going to the substance as the thing that will always be there for them. And I've heard that many times uttered over and over. Well, these things are happening, but alcohol's always there. I can always count on Jack Daniels to da da da, right? Like but it's true that they really associate like that intimacy with that substance to be there for them when they need support. And so ultimately, my goal for any client that is struggling with that relationship with substances is supporting them and going back to safety and security with themselves. I will always be there for myself. I don't need this because I'm here for me. What do I need right now? And I'm going to give it to me. And this goes in much deeper of like, do I feel worthy of that devotion to myself, self-worth, and like all of these kinds of things are also often kind of trickled in there and related to our motivation to seek a substance instead of seeking our own love for ourselves. I'm hurting. I'm going to comfort myself. I'm going to love myself. I'm going to feel those feelings. I'm going to be there for me because I'm worth it. I deserve it. I reparenting, all of these different things kind of come into play too. But that's kind of my approach when I have clients that are struggling with that cycle.
Yeah, that's beautiful. The love is that unworthiness is so important because like Ramdas always said, really the root of the ego is basically unworthiness. And that's where I think, well, if we have that unworthiness and we're not loving ourselves, and then it's extremely hard to accept love from others too. And we really think like these cycles are what we deserve. And I think that's where, like Derrick asked in the beginning, where spiritual love and this relational love actually come together, because it's all the same love in that place. Like if we want to have love with me and my partner and with God or the universe, all of it really is coming from within. And I have to somehow be vulnerable enough to keep surrendering that unworthiness and doing the work and getting deeper. And I think substance, as someone that was a drug addict for so many years, 7 years, really, yeah, it's looking for the same thing that anyone's looking for, which is peace and happiness and love and security and this connection, but not really knowing how to get it and just having these easy, comfortable patterns. Like, oh, it's so much easier to just go back to this and keep doing it and keep doing it. And yeah, I think with relationships with people in addictions, yeah, sometimes people separate and sometimes they don't. And it is tough for sometimes it's two people that are both addicts, and it's tough because you can't control the other person. So sometimes one, all of a sudden they get it and they do change and do that hard work, and the other one doesn't. And then people have to make those choices too, which are hard choices. And I've also met people in recovery meetings who they did get clean and sober, and they're choosing to stay with a partner that's still in active addiction. And for whatever reason, they're saying, yeah, I have a partner that is an active alcoholic or addict, and I've changed my life, but I'm still married to them. And so I don't think any hard and fast rule, but yeah, we have to follow our work or follow our heart and do the work. And we ultimately can't, like you said, Derrick, like we can't try to fix or control anyone else. Often that has the opposite effect. If they want help, we can be there. Right. But it's hard the closer someone is to you, because then you have more attachment in your mind and you have more attachment. Yeah. If it's someone not that close to you, you're like, all right, well, I'll pray for them and love them, and I'm here if they need help. But if it's someone very close to you, then you feel differently about it. It's harder. Yeah.
That's right. Intimacy, closeness, creates so much attachment. And there's healthy attachment, there's unhealthy attachment. And that's what one of the games is, trying to figure out what's healthy, what's not, what serves you and what doesn't. And man, thank you guys. You're dropping so much wisdom.
I've got one more for you before you segue us out of it. One of my favorite quotes or sayings, and also, in my opinion, deep universal truths, is the only thing that I can do for you is work on me. Yep. Right? And so I can set the example. I can be that lighthouse, if you will. I'm going to set firm in myself what I want for me, what's in my highest good. And then you can either come along with me or not, And like Alex was saying, no hard and fast rule. It doesn't mean the relationship has to end. If people are determined enough, you can stay in a relationship for as long as you need to, and maybe eventually they do come along, right? There certainly is no, blanket rule, but to work on yourself is the best thing you can do for anybody around you, for those that you love.
That's so right. I think, Alex, you quoted it earlier, Ram Dass, we work on ourselves so we can serve others. We work on ourselves so we can serve others. And all right, you guys really got me thinking about relationship and that word again. It just ties this whole thing together. You talked about unworthiness being this root, and it's so interesting. I very much can resonate with that. And so, how does one become worthy? How does one do that? And I think it's funny, if that is such a common root, you could look at it in what is the purpose of my relationship to unworthiness? What is the purpose of this? And where do I want that to go? What's the purpose of my relationship to that? And that can lead you somewhere. And there's an affirmation I want to offer that I say often. I think it's so good for this. The affirmation is, everything I need is inside of me. Everything I need is inside of me. It's what you were saying, Ian, about how it's so easy to, form a relationship with a substance to give you the thing that you need. And then what do we have? Dependence. Talked about codependence earlier. This is just a straight up dependence on this thing, because we're creating a relationship where I don't have something and it is external to me. So, a way to counteract that, to work on ourselves, is to affirm something that I do believe is true. If we make it true, that everything I need is inside of me, it can give you that solidity, that stability to be that lighthouse. And with that, it just keeps bringing up questions. And I think that question of, does it serve you, is one to come back to again and again and again for every relationship. You guys are helping me see the way in which that question of what is the purpose of my relationship goes everywhere. It's your intimate relationships. It's your relationship to yourself. It's your relationship to substances. What is the purpose of this? And so, as you start to get any clarity on where you want to go, that question of, does it serve you, can start to lead you down a path that hopefully is toward the light. And it makes me think about, we've talked about Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon, and one of the things people have an issue with the 12-step program, which I've always understood as I've had a winding route through spirituality, is the acceptance of a higher power. That's one of the things that a lot of people might go to the 12 steps and get benefit, but that one can be a hard one. And it makes me wonder if we could replace that with higher purpose, acceptance of a higher purpose. What is the purpose of my relationship? If I have a relationship with alcohol, that purpose might be to keep me safe, to have me not feel like I'm going to spiral into despair. I need that crutch. That's the purpose for someone's relationship to alcohol. But can they get a higher purpose? Whether there's a higher power there, can they get a higher purpose that can give them something to look toward, something to aim toward, that can help them step away from that and find things that serve them toward that purpose? So I really like that. Again, I'm going to be thinking about that question a lot. What is the purpose of my relationship with X? And then think about, what's the higher purpose that I can keep striving for if I want to do something with this life that we're given?
Yeah, I want to come back to your first question, and I want to send it to Alex, of becoming worthy. What's your relationship with that question? What are your thoughts? What came up for you with, how do I become worthy?
Well, for me, it would be, which Ram Dass said this part, realizing that really this is all our curriculum, right? No matter how much we might fight against it, whatever's happening in this exact moment, clearly this is how it has to be, because this is happening down to us in this interview in this very moment. And so for me, it is really surrender, and which could be a hard concept maybe to understand, but for me, with my relationship with God, a guru, or any word, the higher power of the self, is I have to keep opening up to love. And that's what my path is the path of bhakti and love. And when you open up to that love, it's when I often, even through this breakup of this relationship, I will enter these spaces when I'm chanting or when I'm reading a story, and I'll start sobbing tears, feeling so much love, and my heart is just opening. And at those moments, I feel even for my partner that we separated, and it's so sad. And I might fall back into that sadness later, but in those moments, I know that we're all together in this heart of love. And I know me and her, whether we're together or apart or any of it, it's all okay. When you're living in love, it's all okay. When I'm living in the mind, it doesn't seem okay. But when I'm living in the heart, it does.
Mm.
And this beautiful Sadhguru quote I saw, he said, you should true love if you can love somebody not because they're yours, but just because they are. Then that's beautiful. So for myself too, and
Mm.
for her, but realizing so I can love her not because she's mine, but because she is, or just because of what she is. But yeah, I think that's surrender for me. Like I have to keep opening my heart, and there's a million different ways we can do it, but I do it through chanting mantras, through prayer,
Mm.
through service to others, through remembering the stories about other beings that exemplify this type of love, of true reality. So yeah, and going through the hard work, like doing and through people do it through psychedelics, which have helped me immensely. But doing
Mm.
whatever, I have to be going through the pain too, because the pain purifies. And
Mm.
like Rumi says, it's like the fine point of the needle that enters, not the big bulky beast of the
Mm.
ego. And as much as that sucks, there's a lot of beauty on the other side. We have to keep going through um,
Mm.
our illusions and keep going through those. Yeah, yeah.
How beautiful, Alex. Thank you. It's opening up to love. It's funny. This is my hoodie from the Ram Dass retreat. Be here now, here in love. Very, very
Ah,
cute
yeah.
sweatshirt. I bought that when I was with you, and it still it holds up
Wow.
well. It still reminds me, and I just love that path. All right, I could talk to you guys forever, but I unfortunately have a heart out. So I think that is such a great place to end in love. Alex, thank you. Ian, thank you. And Alex, I want to give you a little time to talk about stuff you got coming up. I know you have some exciting stuff on the horizon, and tell people where they can find you if they want to know more about you.
Yeah, sure. I'll be quick. Thank you guys so much. This was beautiful and incredible,
Mm.
and I can't wait to listen to it again myself. Yeah, the easiest place is my website, which is becomingnobody.org, and I have the podcast Becoming Nobody with Alex on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. I do my own videos and I interview people, and then I'm teaching Kundalini yoga in Northwest Indiana and Chicago, and then running the spiritual retreats once or twice a year in India. We have one coming up this July in Belize. And so
Mm.
that one's very cool. I'm interested. That's going to be Kirtan and Kundalini yoga and in a very luxurious, beautiful area. And then we're going to have one in India going to Mount Arunachala Ramana Maharshi next February. I'm partnering with a well-known Ashtanga yoga teacher. So we're going to be doing Kundalini and Ashtanga yoga and Kirtan and going on this pilgrimage and working with Ramana Maharshi's teachings of who am I, of finding the self behind the ego, of what our presence really is. And so, yeah, we got a lot of cool things coming, but the best way would be the website, becomingnobody.org, or Facebook or Instagram, Becoming Nobody with Alex. I always share Alex Momcilovic on there too. So yeah, plenty of ways to
Mm.
connect for sure. And one thing I will say is I always am willing to talk to anybody at any time. So if anyone ever messages me
It's
on
true.
any platform about anything, I will wholeheartedly get back to them, as soon as I can with my most quality of presence and love and attention.
Thank you. If it's not clear enough from this podcast, listeners out there, Alex is a wonderful person to connect to, and he absolutely means it. And you've connected other people to me when they've come to you, and you've opened your heart, and you're just such a connector. So thank you. This has been such a lovely connection. And any parting words or thoughts from you?
No, thanks so much for being here, Alex. It was a beautiful conversation, and would love to have a conversation where we don't have such a strict time, cap, because I think we could have gone for much longer. So,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
yeah, would love to do it again. Would love to have more conversations.
Awesome. Me too. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
This has been the Do You Feel Heard podcast. If you're interested in resources that will help you move through conflict, you can go to doyoufeelheard.com, where we have tools for individuals and couples.